Good evening. We'd like to welcome you to Eisenhower High School and this beautiful theater that has been built for us by the citizens of the Yakima city of Yakima. My name is Stacy Locke. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for the Yakima School District, and we have a great night planned for students and parents around safety and security in the Yakima School District. We have some wonderful speakers, our partnership with YPD, and I think is the agenda up there? Yes. Uh, we're going to talk about Yakima Police Department, the safety issues that we have in Yakima, and of course, as you know, what's happening in Yakima mirrors what's happening in our schools. Very important proposed changes related to the secondary dress policy for students around safety. And we're going to talk about a new program that we implemented called Centegix Crisis Alert and show you how. Are you going to demonstrate, sir? And show you how that works to help protect your students every day on every campus in every field that we have. Interpretation services are here with Jorge. If you would like to.
Si alguien necesita, si alguien necesita de la ayuda del intérprete, los radios están aquí afuera y les ayudan. Si no sirven, me dicen, escuchen.
Thank you, Jorge. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Sarah Cordova. She is the Director of Safety and Security for the Yakima School District, and she will kick the program off. Thank you very much for being here this evening.
Thank you, Stacy. And thank you all so much for being here this evening for our district safety night. And we are excited to share with you some new things that we have going on. But what I'd like to do right now is introduce some of our Yakima Police Department partners that are here to share some valuable information with you. We have Detective Patrick Shad. He's sharing some information with you. But also in the audience, we have Captain Boyle, and we have Yvette Nzunza, and we have Sergeant Grow as well. So we want to give them all a big welcome. Thank you for being here this evening.
Stacy, for having us here tonight. I think it's a privilege to be able to get here and talk to you guys. And really, community involvement is what we're all about at YPD. And the more that the community is educated on the issues that we face as a police department, the more we can work together to reduce violent crime, which is the mission of the Yakima Police Department. Hold on one second. I gotta find the clicker. A little bit about myself. I've been a detective in the gang unit for about 2.5 years now. Prior to that, I spent about 4 years as a patrol officer. My experience before getting into law enforcement varied a little bit. I did some construction, and I also did some youth outreach stuff. So I'm very familiar with working with students and even kind of working with troubled youth, which is kind of what led into my interest into gangs. I like working with our young kids that are causing issues right now. That way? Okay, there we go. Technical issues. So a little bit about our team. The gang unit currently has about 4 detectives and 1 sergeant. Sergeant Grow right here is our supervisor. You might not know this. If you've lived in Yakima for a little bit about a time, you probably do. Yakima has a bit of a gang issue. 4 detectives and a sergeant facing the amount of gang issues that we have would be a little overwhelming. So thankfully we have a fantastic team that's made up of the Yakima County Prosecutor's Office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and federal partners such as ATF, FBI, U.S. Marshals, and so forth that help us out. It kind of creates a real comprehensive team where we can combat these issues from multiple different angles and figure out the best solutions to some of the problems we face. Here's a picture of our team. We've taken on different roles in the gang unit over time. Sometimes you'll see us out on patrol in uniform. Sometimes we'll be in suit and ties as detectives, and sometimes we'll be in jeans and a t-shirt, depending on kind of the need of the mission. That's one thing I love about working this unit is just the ability to adapt and getting to do lots of different things. So what is our strategy? Well, really we kind of base our strategy off the focused deterrence model, which is we're trying to find the most violent perpetrators and try to going after them specifically. And we found that there's really a small percentage of individuals who are committing a majority of the violent crime within Yakima. In fact, we did a study recently, and about 5 individuals over a 3-year span committed approximately 25% of our violent crime within the city. So oftentimes the violent crime being committed is being committed by a very few amount of individuals. So we often like to use our resources to focus on those individuals to either get them out of the gang life or if they need to go to jail, bring cases against them. We do a lot of this just through communication with our different partners, community outreach, and really our model is kind of what we call the carrot and the stick model, where we're not just trying to hammer people. We're not just trying to throw them in jail. We're really trying to help them get out of that lifestyle. And we work a lot with a program called the WAVE program, the Walkabout Yakima. It's been very successful in reaching out and helping individuals get out of gangs and get out of that lifestyle. So we have multiple different gang sets and multiple different gangs in Yakima. The majority are going to be Sureños and Norteños. Sureños being your Southsiders, Norteños being your Northsiders. We have a few different other like motorcycle gangs and white supremacist gangs. They're kind of few and far between. The majority of the gang issues that we deal with in our unit are Norteños and Sureños. So Norteños and Sureños originate from Northern and Southern California. Sureños being Southsiders originate from Southern California and Norteños, Northern California. Excuse me. Oftentimes, if you guys have seen graffiti throughout the city of Yakima, you'll see that the number 14 or the number 13 written. That has to do with just symbolic meanings within their gangs. So like the number or the letter N, is the 14th letter in the alphabet. That's why they'll use the number 14 quite a bit. And the number 13 is for the letter M, which is symbolic of for the Mexican mafia. Here's a number of different sets that are within those Norteños and Sureños within Yakima. We've got on the Sureño side, we got LVL, BSL, PBS, Valencia 13, SSF, and CPB. For the Norteños, primarily BCV21, LR, FSK, UK, or backup crew, PK, the Project Kings, and NSV. So with it, you'll see tagging for those different sets throughout Yakima and the Yakima Valley. And those sets aren't just limited to the Yakima Valley. You'll see them down in Tri-Cities and even they've kind of grown and gone up to Spokane and Seattle as well. So you might notice that if you've been around gangs a little bit in Yakima, you'll see that red and blue are kind of their primary colors that they're out tagging with. It kind of goes back to how these gangs originated out of California. It started with, they were handed out bandanas in the California prison system to kind of help their distinguish between the two gangs. And they ended up choosing the two colors that were available at the time, which were red and blue. Your Sureños are going to have blue. Your Norteños are going to have red. So that's where you'll see a lot of Norteños are going to wear, red shoes or red pants or red shirt. On the Southsiders, you'll see the same thing. Red, sometimes a red belt, red hat, and so forth. So, really, kind of why we're here tonight is to tell you what are the current trends going on with our gangs here in Yakima. It's changed a lot over, I would say, just the past 5 years. And a big reason for that change, I would say, is technology. You have just, I don't know if I'm about 30 years old. And when I was growing up, there weren't any smartphones. Now everybody has a smartphone. Everybody has access to one for the most part, and everybody for the most part has social media. Just in a show of hands are here, who has social media? So I would say probably well over 60% have social media, and I would, for the most part, numbers support that more people have social media than that. So a lot of how gangs used to operate is they would wear the red and the blue to kind of symbolize which set or which gang they were a part of. Now there's kind of this new trend where we kind of call them social media gangsters, where they are spending a lot of their time on social media, primarily because you can find somebody from a rival gang fairly easily on social media. If you get on Instagram or Facebook and start searching terms like SK or Scrap Killer or Nathaniel Killer, stuff like that, you'll very easily start pulling up accounts that come back to Norteños and Sureños within Yakima, and it's very easy to start kind of bad mouthing your opposing gang. So a lot that happens a lot online, and a lot of threats are made. A lot of I've even seen it to where different gang members have started arguing on social media and then basically shared their location over Snapchat, and then they've met up and gotten to a shooting after that. So that's something that we're combating right now. A lot of these arguments and a lot of this conflict originates on these online platforms, and then it builds and brews and then ultimately results in a shooting. And that has to do with within the gangs, respect is a big deal. So when you're dealing with being disrespected, the only way to kind of defend your honor is to retaliate with violence, and that's where we see a lot of the shootings and a lot of the violence come from. A lot of other things are happening on social media as well, where I would say most of our drug dealing today is happening on social media. Most of our the sale of trafficking of firearms is happening on social media. I personally have done cases where I've utilized Snapchat to buy guns from a convicted felon and buy narcotics just by messaging somebody undercover on Snapchat. So it's out there. It's very easy to find, and it's something to be really aware of with your kids, just because it's something where a lot of these gangs and a lot of the older gang members are specifically wanting to recruit juveniles. They're specifically wanting to bring them into the gang because ultimately they're trying to make more money and they're trying to expand their territory. And the best way to do that is to recruit new bodies or new soldiers, is what they like to call them. So, and a lot of how they're doing that is via social media. It's a way that you can kind of reach out and start, for lack of a better term, grooming somebody, getting them sucked into the gang without a whole lot of accountability, because it's something that's extremely hard to track at times. We've seen recently with a lot of these situations where older gang members, usually in the 25 to 30 range, are actively trying to reach junior high and high school kids, and really the age that they're starting to recruit at is about 12 years old. That's where we're seeing kind of just this focus of recruitment, and then within several years of being recruited, these gang members are generally committing fairly violent crime. And the reason for that is, in order to move up with rank within the gang that they're a part of, they're kind of required to do what's called putting in work, which is committing violence against their rival gang. And the more work you put in, the more respect, the more status you have within the gang. So ultimately, you'll see individuals who are wanting to move up quickly in the gang or to have the most respect are oftentimes the most violent. There's several other things that you can kind of look for that are common, that kind of show gang violence and gang membership, things to be aware of. A lot of those things are tattoos. whether you see like the number 14 or the number 13, or Sureños will oftentimes have 3 dots tattooed on their hand or close to their eye. Norteños will have 4 dots. All those different things are indicators of gang membership. Recently, kind of some current trends that we're seeing a lot with juveniles who are going down that path of gang membership. They're like with any group of friends that you might have, you oftentimes start to dress and wear the things that your friends are wearing. Some brands that are very popular right now with our local gang members are Backpack Boys, which is a company that's essentially founded by Norteños out of California. And then the Cookies brand, which Cookies kind of has some ties to just marijuana use and so forth. And it's something that you'll see both Norteños and Sureños wearing oftentimes. A lot of times, another things to look for to see if a juvenile is starting to get involved in gangs is graffiti, and not just graffiti like on a building or so forth, but we'll see notebooks, and kids are often writing different things on their notebooks, just whether it's 3 dots or 4 dots or the number 14 or the number 13, or oftentimes writing like SSF or Southside Valencia, just an indicator of what gang they might be a part of. That's something that we'll see with a lot of those drawings are coming out from juveniles. It's a good thing to look for and a good thing to be aware of, indicating that they might be getting involved in gangs. Here's just some of those things that you might see. Obviously, some graffiti up there. If you go really anywhere in Yakima, it's pretty easy to find graffiti right now. Some of those other tattoos and symbols. The huelga bird is something that was stolen from the farm workers movement, and it was kind of stolen from their movement and used by Norteños to kind of symbolize the northern farm workers. So you'll see a lot of Norteños will have that specific, or they will have the flag, the farm workers flag. It's not always a sign of gang membership, but it is oftentimes in Yakima an indicator of Norteño affiliation. So it's just something to be aware of. So really, things that we're wanting parents to be aware of is right now your high schooler, your junior higher, they are for lack of a better term, like when you're getting recruited for the football team and you're a good football player, you're going to have NFL teams that are going to be after you to try and sign you up and get you signed up in the draft. Well, young junior hires and high schoolers are very much in high demand by the gangs right now. Both sides are recruiting heavily. Both sides are trying to boost their numbers. And it's something that comes down all the way down from the federal prison system. So the Sureños pay homage to the Mexican mafia, which primarily comes out of California, and the Norteños pay homage to Nuestra Familia. Nuestra Familia is very active in the Yakima area right now, and a lot of our gangs in this area are paying homage to these kind of bigger prison gang networks that are extremely violent. And ultimately, the goal of those criminal organizations is to make money. They will say that they're trying to create some kind of movement and so forth, but once you get to the bottom of it, it's really about selling dope. It's really about creating a bigger network and creating a bigger customer base. And the best way to do that is to create a bigger team. And ultimately, your junior higher and high schooler son is a hot commodity for the gang. So just be aware that there are older 25-year-old, 30-year-old guys out there trying to recruit your kids. They're doing it via social media. They're doing it in person. They're very well armed, and they're more than willing to hand out guns, and they will oftentimes provide favors at first to get kids sucked into that gang lifestyle. And really good things to be looking for with your kids is, are they starting to wear a certain color a lot? Are there any sudden changes in what they were wearing compared to what they were wearing the year before? Are they kind of keeping their phone locked down and hidden from you? Is there a really good sign of whether or not your kid could potentially be getting involved in gangs? Is your son or daughter running away a lot? Those are all different things that don't necessarily mean gang affiliation or gang membership, but are often red flags that indicate that your son or daughter may be moving in that direction. So without further ado, I will hand this off to Sarah. I really appreciate your time and appreciate everybody coming here on a Thursday night. I know usually that's, especially on a school night, it's hard to get out with kids. So it really means a lot, the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Detective Shad. And if any of you have questions for him after our presentation, we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. So what I want to share with you at this point is some revisions to our student dress policy for the Yakima School District at the secondary level. So that's our middle schools and our high schools. So as you can see, there are some safety issues going on in our community. And because of the safety issues going on in our community, those can often be reflected with behaviors in our schools. And so some of the changes that we are going to be making have to do with safety. So as you know, if schools aren't safe, if students don't feel safe, then they aren't going to be learning to the best of their ability. And so our focus for all of our students every day is to make sure that we provide a safe learning environment for all of our kids. So one of the changes that will be in effect, so we're going to be starting the rollout of the new dress policy starting now. It's kind of in the phase-in mode, and it will be expected that all schools at the secondary level will be following this dress policy in January when we come back from winter break. So right now, we're just trying to phase it in and get families and students used to what the changes will be. So one of the big ones is going to be that we are going to tell students that they cannot wear hats or head coverings to school. So that would also include hoods. So if your student is used to wearing a hat every day to school, you're going to want to start having that conversation with them so that they know that come January, they will not be able to wear hats anymore. I know that would be a hard one for my own son. He wears a hat every day. I think he would sleep in it if he could. But in order for us to be able to identify who our students are, both in person and also on cameras, when we're looking at cameras and trying to identify students in hallways or after situations, when kids have hats and hoods on, we really can't always tell who they are. And we need to be able to tell who our students are at all times. So for that reason, hats and hoods will not be allowed. Another change is for some schools, we are going to require that students have their ID badge on at all times. So all students have been given an ID badge. We get our pictures taken every year, and the picture company provides our students with IDs. So they will need to have them on. They'll need to be visible as they walk through the buildings. Those will also be required to enter games and sporting events at schools as well. So I know that one might be a little bit hard for some kids, and it will mean that not only will administrators and security staff have to be helping, but teachers will have to be helping as well. This isn't meant to be a situation to get kids into trouble. We're not trying to suspend kids. We're not trying to give detention to kids who are not wearing their badges, but we do want to really make sure that students understand that we have to be able to identify them at all times when they're on our campuses. We will we'll be looking at colors that students are wearing. So that doesn't mean that kids can't wear red or blue to school anymore. Those are the colors that we typically see with gang membership. But if we notice a pattern of behavior, so let's say that I'm a student at Davis and I wear blue day after day after day. That is clearly a pattern, and that is going to be something that will draw the administrators or securities or the teachers' attention. And if that is combined with other gang type behaviors, then that student will probably not be able to wear blue anymore. That doesn't mean the rest of the kids at the school can't wear blue, but if it becomes a pattern for certain students, they will not be able to wear blue or red. So it just depends on if it's a pattern of behavior and it's also tied to other gang indicators. For all kids, we are not going to allow any gang associated words, phrases, or symbols on their clothing. One of the reasons also for not allowing hats is because hats often have emblems and logos that can be associated with gang affiliation, and those logos can change from time to time. And we don't want to have to keep chasing down different changes with logos to keep kids from wearing to school. So it's also another reason to eliminate the hats. We are not going to allow any kind of bandanas to be shown or worn at schools. It doesn't matter what color. There will be no bandanas allowed. A lot of kids like to wear rosaries, and we understand that, but they will not be able to be visible. So if your child wears a rosary, they have to keep it underneath their clothing, and it should not be visible to the outside eye. Another thing that kids have been seen wearing inside schools is sunglasses. So unless it is a medical necessity for them to wear sunglasses, they will not be able to wear sunglasses inside. Also, any clothing with drug, alcohol, verbiage, or symbols, they will not be allowed to wear that. Any clothing with profanity, and any clothing that has weapons or depictions of violent acts will also not be allowed. So again, all of these changes have been made with safety of your students, our staff, and any visitors that come to our buildings in mind. And so we're in the phase-in stage right now, and it will be in effect after January when we come back from our winter break. If you have any concerns or questions about these changes, we do have a QR code that you can access at the end of this program, and you can send in your questions or concerns to us, and we will take note of them. We will get back to you if you leave us your contact information. At this point, we're going to turn it over to Assistant Director Nate Hennion, and he's going to talk to you about our new Centegix program.
Good evening, everybody. Again, thank you very much for joining us this evening for this important topic. So what the Yakima School District started working on last year and implemented this year was a new system called Centegix Crisis Alert. What we understood is when you have an emergency, be it a life-threatening emergency, a medical emergency, minutes and seconds matter. When you start talking about somebody that is in cardiac arrest, for every that they don't receive treatment, chances of living are reduced by 10%. Okay, so we realize that minutes and seconds matter. So with the Centegix Crisis Alert system, this took our response and our communication capability to a whole new level. Oh, there we go. Okay, so Crisis Alert. What you see up here on the screen is a badge. Now, you can't see this badge on me right now because I have a really, really cool plastic container for it that our school districts make. But what this does is this is a wearable badge that every Yakima School District employee has the opportunity to check out. From this badge, they can issue or initiate two types of alerts. Number one, I need help where I am at. Number two, I see something that is imminent or immediate danger of serious bodily injury or death to our staff members and our students, and we are going to put our facility into a full lockdown. So the Yakima School District, being the first school district within the state of Washington to have this technology, has now empowered each and every one of our staff members to say, I see something dangerous, and I'm going to take immediate action to protect everybody here. I have to get used to pointing in this direction. So, going back to time, what we understand when we start looking at that most horrible thing we never want to happen at any school anywhere is a school shooting. In an FBI study and ongoing FBI studies, what they've identified is that 2/3 of school shootings are over in 5 minutes or less. Now, the national average response time for law enforcement to get to the scene is 3 to 5 minutes. So we have that 5-minute window, that 5-minute lag time, where we are going to be responding. The decisions that we make as individuals within the school are going to directly impact the outcome of the event and the safety of those within our facility. So what the Strategics Alert System does is it gives us the opportunity to share information with as many people as possible at one time. We'll go into it here in a moment, and I'll show you how it works. Oh, the other thing, excuse me. So in any given year, there's about 131,000 K through 12 schools across the United States. In 2017, 60% those 131,000 schools dealt with a life-threatening incident that occurred on campus, that they had to deal with on campus, a medical emergency. I'm going to share a story about what happened here in the Yakima School District. So, on that note, we had a staff member that went through our strategic staff training. At the end of that staff training, they chose to get the badge that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. The very next day, we had an assistant principal in his office. He noticed on his phone and on his desktop computer that there was a staff alert. There was a staff member within their school that had initiated a 3-click button push. And when that information is received, it comes up with a little map showing where they're at. Okay, so it shows the actual school campus, and it shows where that person's at, who that person is. That assistant principal immediately got up, moved to where he knew that staff member was going to be, found their office door closed and locked, and the windows on their office were frosted. So he was able to peer through the window, really focus, and he observed our staff member having a heart attack. So he was able to unlock the door, get to that staff member, call emergency medical services, and that staff member was saved. Had that staff member not had this badge, they probably would not be with us today, because when we spoke to them after the fact, they said because of their heart attack, because of their medical condition, they could not use the buttons on the phone. They weren't capable, but they were able to reach up, grab their badge, click it 3 times, and help arrive. There was another incident where Sarah and I were at a school giving a presentation, and we got notification that there was a male who was on the roadway between 2 of our schools that was flashing what appeared to be a rifle. Sarah was able, from her location, to put 2 schools simultaneously into a lockdown. Okay, so she was able to do that within 20 seconds. No more calling people saying, this is what's going on, this is what you need to do. She's able to do it. Our administrators are able to do it from an application on their phone or their desktop. So, the badge is carried by staff members. From that badge, it works anywhere on a Yakima School District campus. They can initiate a lockdown, which goes and activates our strobes. So what Sarah just did was Sarah just put this facility into a secure and teach. That took seconds. She did it from her phone. So what we're seeing now is we have our strobes that are located throughout the entire building. Those strobes are now flashing purple, letting people know in the building that we are in a secure and teach. They're in every classroom. They're every 20 feet in a hallway. There's 4 of them in this room alone. 2 towards the top of the facility and 2 at the bottom. And then through our phone system, this is going to go ahead and give an audible alert. We are currently in a secure and teach. Okay? So just like that, we're able to communicate that information to our entire facility within seconds. So that's the power that we have with this new system. All right. So Like we talked about, a badge. There's two things that our employees can do from this badge. They can initiate a staff alert. So what this means is when one of our employees is dealing with a situation that takes 100% of their focus. So we start thinking about medical emergencies. We start thinking about children, our students, your children, in dangerous situations where they need to focus 100% on that situation at hand. Now is not a time where they can move over to a desk phone and call. Now is not the time where they can move over to a radio and call on the radio. They're able to reach up, 123, summon help, and focus on the situation that's at hand until that help arrives. And we've seen this help our staff and our students numerous times since the full implementation of this system this year. The second thing that our staff members are able to do from this badge, like we talked about, is put a facility into a full lockdown. This is when there's immediate or imminent threat of serious bodily harm or death is happening or is imminent. It's going to happen. Okay, so when we think about things like this, what pops in our head immediately is a school shooter. And unfortunately, it's something that we have to deal with in this country. Okay, so we are coming up with ways to quickly address these situations, to mitigate them, to prevent loss of life and injury to those within our facility. So these, you saw the example of the secure and teach with the purple color flashing on the strobe. So in a lockdown or a lockdown drill, those strobes would flash red. It'd be followed by an audible alert. During a secure and teach, which is what we demonstrated, those strobes flash purple. During an evacuation, they're the same color as our fire alarms, that clear flashing strobe. There's an all clear that we can send out through the system saying everything is okay now. You can go back to normal. That is green. And the blue is a shelter in place. And shelter in place is sometimes a misunderstood alert. So what a shelter in place is for an environmental factor. For example, let's say we were in Mount St. Helens erupted. Okay, let's say that happened today. Where we're turning off the HVAC system, we're closing windows and doors, we're trying to mitigate and minimize the amount of that bad outside air getting into our school. Okay, so that's what a shelter in place is for. So again, you just got an introduction to this new system, and I think that we are almost at everybody trained and having a badge at this point across the Yakima School District. So that is our system. So that is our new system. Just a quick down and dirty demonstration of what it can do. So right now we're going to have Kirsten Fitterer, our executive director of communications in the Yakima School District, here to talk to you about parent communication.
Thank you, Nate. Good evening, everyone. Buenas noches. My name is Kirsten. My voice might sound familiar to you because it's often on the winter delay robocalls, which those are about to happen soon if we have snow and our schools delay or close. The very first one of the season, you will hear my voice that will tell you we're delayed a couple of hours or not having school. But you're not only going to hear my voice, we now use Parent Square. We are in our third year of using Parent Square to communicate to you all of our messages, whether that's coming from your child's teacher, your child's school, or the district office from people like me. Every night at 6 o'clock If you have received messages from anybody that I just mentioned, you will receive a digest via Parent Square for each one of your children that tells you the messages that have come in regarding them. If you're not receiving that for some reason, please check in with your school. If you have not yet registered with Parent Square, I encourage you to do so because you will get all messages, including crisis messages, which I'll talk about in a minute. You register by going to www.ysd7.org/Parent Square. It's in English y Espanol. For crisis communications, anytime your school status changes, much like it just did here as a sample at Eisenhower, we changed the status of school from normal operation to secure and teach. Once we have dealt with whatever that crisis might be, we then communicate out to families. You might notice that you will be unable to communicate maybe with your teacher or your school momentarily while we're in crisis because I turn that all off for everybody so that I can message out to you and you will have the same message that I know to be factual and I know to be true. And then you can correspond with me about that. In a crisis, we are very careful about what we say so that you do not get unnecessarily alarmed. But if it is a situation where it is alarming, we do our best to be clear and transparent with instructions for you as families as to what to do next. You will notice the very first thing we say is, your students are safe. And we tell you what their current status is. How many have students at different schools? Yeah, that's probably hard to keep track of. Well, 3 years ago, you told me that you only wanted to go to one place for all the messages regarding all your kids at all their different schools, and Parent Square was the response to that. So you should be getting messages for all of your kids from the teacher, from the principal, from me, only on Parent Square. If you're having any trouble accessing Parent Square, please go to your school or feel free to call the district office at 573-7000. It's very easy for us in a crisis to notify you, and we do that immediately. You might get a message from me saying something's happened and we're aware and we're processing it. I'll be right back with you. In that case, please just hold and wait for the next factual and true information, and trust us that we are working hard to make sure we get that for you in a crisis. So that's all that I have to say to you tonight about that. Again, I'll wrap back up with a winter weather warning because we do need to be ready for that. I think the weather looks okay for the next week or so, but maybe coming back from this fall break, we will have temperatures that get a little bit colder. Roads might get a little icier. So the buses will do an analysis. I'll wake up very early and the superintendent will tell us what's happening with school today, and I'll let you know. You can count on a Parent Square message by 6:15 in the morning, but if you would like to know earlier, you can check our website by 5:30 a.m. and the message will be there in English and in Spanish. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the information that we wanted to share with you this evening. Again, thank you all for being here. Are there any questions? We have Detective Shad is still here. We have Nate Hennion, who is also available to answer questions. Kirsten, I know, would be happy to answer questions. So are there any questions that you would like to ask right now? And if you don't want to ask them out loud tonight, you can also use the QR code. Yes. Andy, right behind you.
Sorry about the articles of clothing. So, from what I'm reading, I'm understanding that if there's a religious headdress that can be worn on the outside, correct? But a rosary, which is also a religious article, can only be worn on the inside. Why is that?
Because the headdresses have been, so we know that headdresses can be associated with religious things, and I also understand that rosaries can be as well. Usually the headdresses, unless there's a gang logo, aren't associated with gangs, but unfortunately many of our gangs have used rosaries as a sign of gang involvement and membership, and so we don't want that to be displayed on students outwardly. If they want to wear it underneath their clothing as a religious expression, they can do that, but we don't want to draw unnecessary attention in a negative way to any children or any students at school.
Is it really allowed as a religious expression, though, if it can't be seen on the outside?
As far as my understanding is, usually rosaries, if they are religious expressions, they are used for prayer and not for jewelry. But we don't want to tell kids that they can't wear them. But if you want to talk further about that afterwards, we can. We will make some religious accommodations for certain students with hats and head coverings. And so if that's something that in coordination with a local church that you want to make that accommodation, we can talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay.
Todo seguridad que tienen es en todas las escuelas desde primer grado.
That's a great question. So the Centegic system is in place in all of our schools and all of our buildings. The gang issues do impact all of our schools and all of our all the people in our community, but the dress code changes right now are only in place for secondary, so middle schools and high schools. Although if students are wearing gang affiliated clothing, that's always been part of our policy, and so gang affiliated things will not be allowed at elementaries. We're just not requiring the IDs to be on all elementary students at this time. And we're not taking away hats from elementary kids at this time unless it poses a different problem. Are there any other questions? If you have a question and you don't feel comfortable asking it in this audience, you're again welcome to click on the QR code before you leave, and you can fill out the questions and answer the questions there as well. We'd also like just everybody to go ahead and click on the QR code. There are some questions about the evening's presentation that we would like your feedback on. And so if you don't mind using the QR code, I think it's actually behind me as well. So we'd love to hear your feedback and answer any questions you may have. If you want us to get back to you and reply to any questions, make sure you fill out your contact information so that we can get an answer to you. All right, thank you again for coming tonight, and we welcome you back anytime.